Hey there, listeners. I am Joanne Lee Cornish, your truth bomb dropper in the world of weight loss, body composition, and mastering the art of rocking the body you've always deserved and dreamed of in midlife and beyond. Let's cut through the noise. Society tells us it's downhill from now on. We're told to embrace the middle-aged weight gain, embrace the muscle loss and poor health. If that's your vibe, then cool. But if you're ready to defy the narrative, then I am your gal. This podcast is a no fluff podcast where we break down the essential truths of body composition, toss around some practical tips, and dissect the latest trends. I'm not here to sugarcoat. I'm here to show you what's not just possible, but downright probable for you. If you enjoyed this content, be sure to click the link in the show notes to explore how we can team up and kick mediocrity to the curb. I offer one-on-one coaching, my ever-popular group coaching programs, and my corporate Educate to Elevate program. Okay, let's get on with the podcast. Enjoy. The progression of premenopause and menopause. So I've been coaching my Master in Midlife program, and I am shocked. I'm not sure why I'm shocked, but the fact that ladies don't know where they are in this chapter of life, that there is no guidance of what to expect or what to look out for as we're entering perimenopause, going through it, the other side of it. And I have ladies in their 50s that didn't realize they were, knew there was something going on, but didn't realize where they were in the journey. And it's no judgment on them at all, because where will we ever coach about what to expect at this stage in our life? And to be clear, this stage can be 15 years. It's a substantial part of our life. And what I think happens what I know happens at first is women start to get symptomatic, and they put it down. If they think it's situational, they're stressed at work or the families, or, well, I'm not trying hard enough, I'm not training as much, I'm not eating as well as I used to, and all these stories. And they don't actually recognize that, things are starting to change. And things do start to change before signs show up, like irregular periods and things like that. So I thought what I would do was, and I just did it in great detail with my Master Midlife program. And from a podcast, I won't do that, but I will do an outline of what to expect. And obviously, these are general ages. To know what age you will be when you achieve, because it is an achievement. I felt like it was such an achievement when you reach menopause. For the best guideline, you can look at your mom and think about when she was menopausal. And my mom went through it when she was, she said 51, and I was 52, when I had my full 12 months without a cycle. So there's definitely a very strong genetic component there. But when my mom started, I don't know. And the truth is, I doubt she did either. So let's go through the years. So let's start talking about right at the beginning. So maybe early 40s, the first shifts. Some ladies are in their late 30s, but usually 40s. Personally, I think I was about 44. And the hormonal landscape. So progesterone starts to decline first. Even while cycles remain regular, and estrogen is still cycling, but often in unpredictable spikes and dips. So estrogen is still cycling quite normally, but you'll get the spike, you'll get a dip. So you get PMS, like mood changes, like irritability, anxiety, a bit of weepiness going on that maybe you didn't experience before. And that's easy to put down to situational. Oh, I overreacted to something, or I'm too emotional to that. And that can be the cycling of estrogen. Remember, when estrogen is higher, that's an anxiety thing. So when we're in a state of estrogen dominance, which I'll get to in a second, but when estrogen is higher as a ratio to progesterone. That's the anxiety, that's maybe the overreacting, that can be the irritability, and that really gets going because the progesterone declines. So progesterone and estrogen are like kissing cousins, and when they're in balance, then everything's hunky-dory and everything is okay in the world. So estrogen can make you a bit anxious, but progesterone is your natural Xanax, I guess. I mean, that's what my nurse practitioner actually called it, the female Xanax, and it evens things out. But if progesterone starts to get away or go decline, which it does, it's the first hormone to decline, then estrogen relative to progesterone is actually in a dominant state. And that's when things can start to happen. So PMS, like mood changes, sleep disturbances, especially difficulty staying asleep. You're going to get shorter cycles, menstrual cycles, maybe heavy bleeding or mid-cycle spotting. And there's maybe going to start to be a little bit of puffiness around the midsection. Now, I know for me, all was well, but what drove me crazy was really intense PMS. Now, everyone gets your PMS, but it was way more intense than in my 30s. So I would feel like I was PMSing for literally like half the month. I might weigh 7 pounds heavier. I mean, it was insane. I felt like you could get a pin and just prick me and I would burst like a water balloon. And it would be, I felt like it was half a month. I mean, that would dictate. I remember I was going to a wedding and I had the outfit I was going to wear, and I had two outfits. One if I was PMSing, and one if I wasn't. I mean, it felt like that much of a difference to me with regards to my body composition. Now, I knew a lot about this stuff even back then, and what you can do is check your blood work. So, and I would really suggest, ladies in your late 30s, early 40s, please do your blood work, even if you think you don't need to. Because what that will do, it will give you a baseline from which to compare as you start to go through this chapter of life. So I did do that. Super useful. And what you'll see is the progesterone levels start to lower in the luteal phase. So in that last 2 weeks before your period, progesterone will be lower than they were. Also, what can happen is thyroid dysfunction can become unmasked. So monitor your TSH, that's your thyroid stimulating hormone, your free T3, your T4 are all worth monitoring at this point, because it's at this point when the other hormones start to get stripped away, then thyroid issues can become clearer. So definitely get your thyroid checked, your thyroid stimulating hormone, your free T3, your T4. Check your progesterone. Do that at the same time as the month, because otherwise, obviously, you get an irregular reading. And look at FSH. So FSH is follicle stimulating hormone, and it's going to start to fluctuate. Now, at this point, it's not a reliable marker, but it's kind of worth doing your blood work, because then you can compare it as the years go on. So follicle stimulating hormone reacts very much like, I don't know, a thyroid stimulating hormone. Like it will increase as you go into perimenopause. So follicle stimulating hormone, it will go up. It will become more active as your hormones decline. Just like thyroid stimulating hormone will go up as your body tries to make more thyroid. So when thyroid is low, your body tries to make more. So these hormones will actually be elevated. So start watching out for that. Although in the early 40s, it's not going to be totally reliable as a marker for perimenopause, but it is worth knowing those numbers at this point. Watch out for intense PMS symptoms. Watch out for like maybe your emotions change. Don't blame yourself. Sleep disturbances, and maybe getting a little bit puffy. But for me, the water retention was out of this world. Start tracking your cycles if you don't do it already, and track your symptoms. Now, that's something I didn't do. I was aware of them, but I wish I'd written that down. Like, how do you feel? Start keeping maybe a little journey, like a journal, like a little notebook or something on your phone. Just start tracking that a little bit. I'm sure there's an app for that. Also, check for nutrient deficiencies, your iron, your vitamin D, B12, magnesium, your omega 3s. They would be the big ones: iron, vitamin D, B12, magnesium, omega threes. I would actually supplement with that. Vitamin D, B12, magnesium, omega three. They are definitely my top supplements anyway. And on your blood work, look at your cortisol and look at your blood glucose. And if you've got it, look at your fasted insulin. If you haven't got it, ask for it. It's a dirt cheap test. So that's what I would start looking at. Now, the reason I'm saying to check your cortisol on here is because estrogen kind of buffers cortisol. So when estrogen starts to go down, cortisol can come up. Now, when cortisol comes up, that can also lead to moodiness, anxiety, everything that goes with that stress hormone. And also, cortisol is linked to weight gain. So definitely check that cortisol burden in your early 40s. What you're getting here is you're kind of mapping out the scenario, kind of your starting point as you go into this. Probably no need for conversations about HRT. You're really kind of doing some data collectory at this point, some discovery work. Now, once you get into your mid 40s, I would call these, I call it, well, if you know me on my programs, I call it the circus because it's absolute nonsense, right? So the mid 40s, things really start to change. It's a roller coaster. So progesterone deficiency is now common. Estrogen swings become dramatic. Sometimes estrogen's high, so you get some breast tenderness, you get migraines, heavy periods, and then sometimes it's low, and maybe you'll have hot flashes, maybe vaginal dryness. And for me, this was about 47. Now, I laugh when I think about this because let's talk about the hot flashes. So they started for me when I was 47. And I distinctly remember being out with my girlfriend Mary and my husband Kevin, and we were at the Grove in LA at Christmas, and we're all dressed up for Christmas. And all of a sudden, I am drenched. I mean, like poured a bucket, like water just pouring out of from my chest up, out of my head, back of my neck. I'm wearing a black dress, and it is drenched to the boobs, right? And I'm just sitting there in this restaurant with them, and they're kind of laughing at me because I'm like, what is going on? I'm just dripping. It's off my nose. I have to pull my hair up, drenched. I'm like, what was that all about? And it happened for maybe less than a week. And then I never had another one for 6 months. And I remember thinking in my naivete, excuse me, oh yeah, I've done the hot flashes. I've got through that. Oh my gosh. No, that was just a taster. And then about 6 months later, I had another few hot flashes like, oh wow, it's back. And then they went away. So I spent a good couple of years thinking, oh, I've gone through it. Oh, they came back a bit and they went away. And they would happen at the day, they would happen at night, but often they were during the day and totally drenched and then gone. But each time, there's about 6 months in between. And I thought, whew, at least I've got through that stage of hot flashes, because I know some women really struggle on that. Little did I know that that was just the estrogen swings that are really common in those first roller coaster years. So it's up and then it's down. Progesterone is definitely low, and on blood work, it's showing it's low. So there's maybe some irregular periods, sometimes skipped cycles. Now, funnily enough, I didn't get that. Hot flashes, night sweats begin, but they don't necessarily stay. Brain fog, memory lapses, skin changes, some people hair thinning, joint aches. In the blood work, so that FSH, follicle stimulating hormone, is becoming more erratic, but the trend is upward. Your estradiol, your E2, is fluctuating dramatically. And at this point, I did start progesterone. And again, this is maybe a conversation you have with your health professional based on your symptoms. It's not based on your age. It's not based on your even on your blood work. It's based on, how is your life experience? What are the symptoms? Because remember, your normal might be completely different to what's normal in the blood panel range. I know, for example, with me, ironically, because I was a professional bodybuilder, but I've always got low testosterone. Always have. Even when I was competing, I was fine. I felt completely fine. But my normal was lower than other people's. So it's worth knowing things like that. And that's why tracking your blood work before things really start to change is really useful. But at this point for me, after the mid 40s, I did start taking progesterone. And that was because, well, for one, I saw my blood work, but the symptoms were the really intense PMS that was lasting like half a month. It was just beyond at this point. And I noticed my mood. I became pretty blah, like the glass was half empty. And I'm not that person. I remember, so I lived in Malibu at the time, and I was driving down to Venice where I worked. And there's a grocery store there. And I stopped at the grocery store and picked up some stuff, got back in the car. And in my head, I'm like, blah, 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 woe is me, woe is me. And I had to pinch myself. I caught myself. I'm like, hold on. You are driving from Malibu, California to Venice. Your grocery store has a better view than most hotels. The sun was it was a beautiful day. I'm like, I'm going to work with clients that I love. Like, what's your problem, Joanne? Well, my hormones were my problem, and it was at that point that I actually started progesterone. And for one, it definitely helped with the water retention, which was nice. But at that point, I was probably 47, I'm going to say. But again, everybody's different. So then we get a bit older, and this is to the late 40s, very late 40s. For some women, 50. For me, it was dead on 50, actually. So now estrogen begins its overall downward trajectory. Progesterone is minimal. Um, Ovulation is very, very inconsistent. And the symptoms that we're experiencing now, so more persistent hot flashes and night sweats, weight changes for some accelerate, loss of muscle tone, slower recovery from exercise, depression or anxiety in women without prior history. Let me give you my experience. The hot flashes were, night sweats were not, I had them a little bit in the day. I remember being in Gold's Gym, Venice, and it was in the summer, and there's no air conditioning in that gym. And I'm just drenched. And I'm thinking, well, at least nobody can tell because everybody else is sweating as well. But the night sweats. So the night sweats for me started after we moved from California and we moved to Idaho. Because I don't really remember them too much in Malibu, but in Idaho, yes, they really got to be problematic. The whole thing, ladies, totally drenched. And then 2 minutes later, you're completely cold and you're putting towels on the bed and you're just miserable. I didn't get the weight change. I'll talk about that later. The loss of muscle tone, yes. So I would say dead on my 50th birthday, I started to lose muscle. It was noticeable. Skin texture started to change. Slower recovery from exercise, definitely. The workouts were just beating me up. And as I stated, depression or anxiety in women without prior history. So that's me. I had 2 full-blown panic attacks. The story I like to tell, just to illustrate this, and I am not a panicky person. I'm not saying I don't worry. I'm not saying I don't get you're concerned, but generally, I'm a pretty hard-headed. I don't know, but I'm just pretty good about that. I like to be happy. I enjoy being happy. I strive to be happy. So anxiety and things like that don't really work well for me. So what happened was Kevin. So we've moved to Idaho, and Kevin Kevin was going back and forth to LA, so he was away during the week, coming back on Thursdays or Fridays. And then I'm at home with my two dogs and two cats, and it's one evening, and I think I'm having a heart attack or something. I can't get my breath. My heart is racing. I don't know what is going on. Now, at that point, I should have just phoned 911. Yeah, should have phoned 911. Didn't even think about it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what's going on? I'm having a heart. What's happening? What's happening? Don't ask me why I didn't call 911. And it was so bad that I wrote two letters. I went and I filled all the pets' foods up, all the food bottles. I put all these water bowls out, and I put all this food out so the dogs would be okay and the cats would be okay. And I wrote two letters, and I wrote one letter to my parents and one letter to Kevin because I thought I'm going to die, and he's away and he's going to find me. And so I'm sitting on the floor, and this is going on, and then it just dawned on me, is this a panic attack? And as soon as I like, hold on, I coach about this, I know about this, I've just never experienced it. And as soon as I realized, I felt 100 times better. But that's how bad the first panic attack, and I had another one like that. But then I immediately realized what was going on. I just kind of talked myself out of it. But ladies, it's no joke. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen, but my point is, if it's happening to me, no prior history of anything like that, out of the blue, no reason for it, unbelievable. Now, so yeah, this was. I mean, I had turned 50. Now, part of the thing with me is I just had a pretty big surgery, a bit of emergency surgery, which did a number on my hormones. But this also is very common right about this age. So I know it's 50 because we moved to Idaho when I turned 50. And yeah, the loss of muscle tone was I remember doing a yoga class and being in downward dog and looking at my legs and was like, what the is going on there? That was interesting. So that was really kind of tough. So what are we talking about there without blood work? So now the blood work. So now at this point I'm getting my blood work done every 6 months. So your FSH, your follicle stimulating hormone, is persistently high. It's over 30. That's always high. That's not even fluctuating. Your estradiol believes your E2 begins to show a consistent decline. Less fluctuations. It's just coming down. Your DHEA and your pregnenolone are lower in some women. That's going to lead to fatigue. So DHEA and pregnenolone are the precursors for your hormones. So when they start to go down, then your ability to make the other hormones kind of declines as well. So now we've got the HRT, the hormone replacement therapy talk. And now at this age with these symptoms, progesterone and estrogen might be more common at this point. And the estrogen is going to take the form of patches and gels and pills for progesterone. You're not going to be taking a pill for estrogen. You might be taking a vaginal suppository for estrogen, but maybe you could take a DHEA and pregnenolone capsule, which I did for a while, quite a while, to support my natural hormones. So at this point, so at first there was the first stage was just monitoring things. I know before anything started, I used a little bit of golden flax, which seemed to help. It's like mid 40s. It was kind of 47 when I started with progesterone, 50 progesterone and estrogen. And this is kind of the standard progression for most ladies. And again, some women do not need any of that. We've got to go on symptoms. Some women are just doing fine at this point. Then you get to the early 50s and now menopause. So 12 months without a cycle. And what a relief. Oh my gosh. So I was 52 and I was counting down till those 12 months. And now the hormonal landscape is estrogen is now consistently low and progesterone is negligible. So at this point, I have clients who will say, I have no progesterone. Like it's shocking. No, that's what it's going to be. I mean, estrogen's in the tank and progesterone is seemingly gone. Now the symptoms like vaginal dryness, painful sex, declining bone for a lot of people, the hot flashes, night sweats, like 80% of women are going to have those. The intensity varies, but 80% of women are going to have to deal with that. Sleep remains a huge issue. So for the sweats, I know I already had my estrogen, but I was also prescribed a breakout cream. So I had a different estrogen, it's just a separate estrogen, the same type. That if I was having a hot flash, I could just rub it on the inside of my thighs as it was happening, and it helped the situation. It certainly didn't alleviate it, but I would say it helped a little bit. Maybe I just felt a little bit more in control. Um, Now, also at this point, now I'm 12 months in, I'm reached menopause, and now I start taking testosterone. So the testosterone started, let's say 51, with a very low dose cream. Some people use gel, some people use those implants. Never wanted to do that. And the testosterone is being prescribed for strength, motivation, mood, and libido. That is a very, 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 very common complaint. Ladies with the sex drive declines, and they feel terrible about it. I mean, we feel terrible about it. It's you don't want it to be the way it is, and that's probably one of the main reasons that women try to get testosterone because they want to fix that. Now, but the reality is, I very seldom hear of women that recovering fully, even with testosterone use. But at this point, so now I'm 52 and I've got an estrogen patch, progesterone and testosterone, pregnenolone and DHEA capsule, which which is a great tool. However, I did stop taking that because my DHEA went too high, but most people would be fine. And then they're kind of on this protocol. But that progression from nothing, just symptoms are starting, being aware of it, starting your blood work, maybe taking a bit of golden flax, maybe, looking at lifestyle changes, sleep hygiene and all this lot. Checking your insulin, checking your cortisol, very important. Then progressing a little bit into the mid 40s, progesterone starting to decline, maybe late 40s, you start taking progesterone, and then then estrogen, and then by the time you're actually menopausal, the testosterone is coming in. And again, for the muscle loss, the libido, the strength, motivation, mood, you know, that's a tough one. Obviously, I'm self-employed, but this goes for anybody, well, anybody, doesn't matter if you're in a career or not. But when that motivation declines, when you have to really dig deep to the drive that you used to have is not there as much, and you really have to dig for it, that's exhausting. So that is kind of the landscape so far. Um, but at this point, once you get to like your mid 50s, so I'm 58 now, but so menopause is about 50, and yeah, I mean honestly, right after menopause, like the everything got so much better. Losing muscle, skin changed, but in terms of sleep, everything, it was like there was one last hurrah, and then everything just calmed down, and you exit the circus. But so the symptoms when we're going forward past the mid 50s, hot flashes often subside. You will sometimes get some heat. You might just get warm at night, and that can be compounded maybe if you alcoholic drink. I know I used to drink wine. I never drank wine until I moved to Idaho. Then I used to drink some wine, and I had to just stop it because I could not sleep if I drank wine. Not, I mean, it was even if didn't matter how far away from my bedtime it was. No, so the hot flashes subside, but you could have a little bit of heat. The sarcopenia, the loss of muscle, the osteoporosis risk, cardiovascular risks shift. Memory, cognitive decline, that can be noticeable. Skin thinning, hair loss, fragility. All of these are now showing up in the mid 50s and beyond. When you're looking at your blood work, if you're not doing HRT, which is personal choice. What you're looking at now is probably very low estrogen, very low progesterone, if anything, and very low androgens. Like everything is in the can. Now, what else you can look for in your blood work is your lipid profile might worsen. So your LDL, often called the bad cholesterol, that's a whole podcast in itself, but that can go up. Now, mine doubled and nothing changed, but that doubled, and it's the receptors not clearing the LDL. That's what's going on there. But very, very, very common with ladies in midlife, their LDL goes up and they get very freaked out about that. Now, what you've got to do with that is look at your total health risk. So, what is your total risk? What is your blood glucose? What is your insulin? What is your HDL, the good cholesterol? Is it high? Are your triglycerides low? If your overall risk is low, then the doctor might say they're not to be too concerned about that elevated LDL. If that LDL is coupled with high triglycerides, low HDL, high glucose, high insulin, high cortisol, then yeah, combined that's a crazy risk factor you got going on. And when you start to enter this circus, we really have to up our game and be a lot more deliberate about our insulin response with our food, the amount of sugar we're willing to consume because of those triglycerides. It matters because if you don't control that, then once you get to this age, it can really increase your risk factors. Now, with the HRT, also, sorry, with your blood work, your fasted blood glucose can be going up. Insulin resistance is a lot more common. And again, you can address these issues at any time, but if you address these issues before you enter the circus, your experience in the circus will be very different. Which brings me on to, so why is it that the average woman gains 35 pounds during perimenopause and other women just sail through it? In terms of body composition, they don't gain weight. They lose muscle tone maybe, but they don't gain weight. The skin might change, but body composition wise, not such a crazy shift. Why is that? Now, to a lot, yes, genetics to a large extent, but I'd say the biggest factor for the majority of women there is how healthy was the lady as she entered perimenopause. If you enter perimenopause, say your early 40s, if you enter that chapter in life with high cortisol and high insulin, your experience is going to be probably pretty tough. Yes, your estrogen is declining. Yes, your progesterone is declining. Yes, your testosterone is declining. But given that scenario, if you throw in that mix and high insulin load and high cortisol, that's like throwing oil on the fire. Then that's the weight gain, that's the midsection, that makes this situation so much worse. So indeed, we can say, hormonally, things change with the body composition, but we also know of a lot of people that don't get impacted as much. And the difference for a lot of people is because they enter the perimenopause stage in a healthier state. So you have to look at your cortisol, you have to look at your insulin, and if you control them, your experience in perimenopause will be so different. Yes, estrogen is a fat storing hormone, but only in the presence of elevated insulin. If your insulin's not elevated, if you're not over consuming, if you haven't got leaky gut, if you haven't got inflammation, that estrogen by itself isn't going to do too much. You add an insulin load to that, and it's going to be a disaster. You add a cortisol load to there. Cortisol in itself elevates blood glucose because cortisol's one job is to get fuel. Cortisol's one job is get as much fuel as you can for the host. And the host is the brain. So cortisol will get blood glucose from anywhere. It will make you eat more. It will make you snack on the wrong food. It will get the liver to break down glycogen into glucose. It will elevate your fasted blood glucose to keep glucose available for the brain, because that's what cortisol's job is. Make fuel available for the brain. So your blood glucose is going to go up. That's going to lead to elevated insulin as insulin tries to clear that blood. Of the 6 hormones that change our body composition, The big ones are insulin and cortisol, and we can control those. I did a I did a coaching call on Saturday, and one of the ladies said to me, they said, what would you suggest? What would you advise to any like 38-year-old lady? And that was a simple one that get your blood work done, insulin, cortisol. If they're elevated, fix it now. Fix that cortisol now. Fix that insulin now. Both of which can be fixed. Cortisol, people think they can't fix the cortisol. Yes, you can. High cortisol, weight loss is going to be difficult. Building muscle is going to be nigh on impossible because cortisol actually breaks down muscle. Check your cortisol. I mean, the one time I had mine high and I brought it down in 2 months. Insulin high, fat storage hormone. You go into perimenopause in a high insulin state, and the experience is going to be challenging. The people that they don't come out unscathed. I certainly didn't come out unscathed. I didn't gain any weight, but I didn't come out unscathed because of the panic attacks and the night sweats. But my knowledge about cortisol and insulin saved me. I don't know if "saved me" is a word, but I haven't necessarily got the genetics. I haven't got necessarily. My mom had a very thick waist as she got older. It's not like I've got skinny jeans or anything like that. Um, but my behaviors definitely saved me from having a different experience during perimenopause, and that can be the case for anybody. So my answer to that lady that asked me, what would you suggest? What advice would you give to a 38-year-old? And it was, get your blood work done, get your blood work done. And, you want to know, what are your hormones now? Check that blood work when they're meant to be the highest. Right before your period, what are they right before the period, by your period, get those numbers. What is your insulin? If it's not in your blood work, request it. If they won't do it yourself, lifeextension.com. You want to know your cortisol. You want to know what your lipid panel is. Do some data collecting, do some discovery work because things are about to change. And if you've got something to compare them with, that is going to help to link the symptoms to the blood work and to the possible protocols for HRT if you decide to go that way. So that is the progression of premenopause to menopause. Again, the ages are average ages, but they are pretty accurate. Early 40s, 42, things are starting to change. Noticeable, maybe 44, the PMS thing, maybe the mood a little bit. 47, 48, yeah, progesterone's low, might well want to have that discussion around then. Estrogen's going to be put in around 50 or something like that, and maybe you start with a little cream, you end up with the patch, and the testosterone will come in last. Now, indeed, some women go on all of them straight away. That is usually when the ladies that have waited till their 50s before doing HRT or having the conversation about HRT, they are the ladies where they usually start everything at once. And hopefully, usually with a very good result. What I think the benefit is of the progression is because you're very sure about what works. So the progesterone helps with water retention, definitely helps with sleep. Then years later, you put the estrogen on top of that. A lot of women are very nervous about taking estrogen, and you realize how your mood changes. Helps, and the sleep really helps with the sleep. And then the testosterone, when the sex drive declines, your drive, your motivations really vanished, and you're seeing your muscle tone change. So when you do that progression, the benefits of each hormone are quite significant and are obvious. I can imagine when you start them all together at once, you're not sure what's working, if something's not working, what's not working. I don't know many ladies that are put straight on progesterone, estrogen, testosterone. I think even those that start in their 50s, they usually start with the progesterone, estrogen, and then once they found their place there, then the doctor adds testosterone. That's what I've seen. But I hope that understanding the progression, wherever you are in this, where even if you're like me and you're the other side of it, hopefully knowing the progression just helps you recognize, look for the symptoms and be able to have an educated discussion with a health professional. But for those girls of you who are younger, maybe in your late 30s or anywhere in your 40s, please do your blood work and please, please, please know that your experience of perimenopause and menopause is greatly affected by hormones, but especially by insulin and cortisol. So I coach this in my Mastering Midlife program. I only run it live once a year. However, at any point you can purchase the midlife program, midlifemonth.com, and you'll have all the content. You'll have a year to go through all the content. And then what works really well is people will book one-on-one sessions with me. Maybe they book one at the beginning, they'll get to a topic they want to discuss more, they'll book another one. So there's no right number for how many times people pull me in. Some people do the program by themselves. It works really well though when you pull me in for some private sessions as you're going through the program. I hope that helped. I do hope you enjoyed this episode of Midlife Mayhem. Be sure to subscribe and be sure to tell your friends about this wonderful podcast. If you would like more of me, then on social, it's simple, just my name at Joanne Lee Cornish. Also my website, theshrinkshop.com, where you can see all my coaching programs. There are many, many ways we can work together. Obviously, I do private one-on-one coaching. I do all my programs are in a self-study form, and all my programs are run as a live program at least once a year. I try and do twice, but it usually ends up being once. I have mindset program. I have my awesome 5-day peak week shred that people love. I have the signature weight loss program. I have Tight 28, which is advanced weight loss. I have muscle mastery, and I have Mastering Midlife. So 6 programs that offer a progression to fully understand body composition through the ages. If you have questions, if you're kind of wondering how I can help you, then simply shoot me an email at jo@theshrinkshop.com. Tell me what's going on and I'll get back to you and let you know the way I can help. Okay, that's it for now.